Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for being here. You know, Michigan's a border state, so we need each other. We have a very big bridge that's being inaugurated, ribbon cut in September. We need that to be fully staffed. We have a lot going on in Michigan as a northern border state, so we need each other. But what I'm concerned about is that you've taken the mandate to close off the border beyond going after, as you say, the, quote, most dangerous illegal immigrants.
Let's talk about what happened in this fiery exchange between Senator Alyssa Slotkin and DHS Secretary Kristi Noem.
I'm a CIA officer. I work my entire life to protect the homeland. If someone's here illegally, they need to not be here. They've committed a crime by being here. They need to go back to wherever they're from. But my concern is that either through sloppiness or intent, you have gone far beyond going after the, quote, most dangerous illegal immigrants and gone into legal immigrants who were given the ability to be here, and even American citizens. And when I think about that, you know, there are lots of people in this country, including me, who have families who fled this kind of environment where they have no rights, where they have no due process, where they don't have habeas corpus. So while I'll be the first to say, coming from a state that was won by Trump, that there is a mandate to do something about the border, I think it is absolute dangerous overreach to go beyond that and start picking up American citizens and people who have the legal right to be here, lawful immigrants who have done everything right. So first and foremost, do you acknowledge that your department has made some mistakes, any mistakes, in going after either American citizens or legal immigrants here in the time that you've been in office?
We have not deported any U.S. citizens
detained,
or people get interviewed. If they get interviewed and they go through that process and we find that they're U.S. citizens or legal immigrants, they stay in the United States.
Have you deported
We have to go through the vetting process.
Have any American citizens, including children, been deported during your time in office?
We have children that mothers have chosen to keep with them. So those
by my count, you have 10 American citizens, including children with cancer, who have been deported out of the country. I understand you're saying it's their choice.
But it's hard to imagine
a small child having a choice. But have you gone after legal immigrants? Again, your standard in your opening statement was the most dangerous illegal immigrants. Does that include PhD students and master's students at colleges across the country, unarmed? Are they the most dangerous illegal when they have status and no weapons?
I don't decide who gets status through a student program. The Department of State decides that, and we enforce it.
Oh, come on.
That's what our Department of Homeland Security does.
I just would offer that, again, I have no qualms with going after folks who are here illegally. That is not my concern. That was part of my job, was to prevent people from coming here illegally in a former life. My concern is you're sending a chill down the spine of America by going after people who either have legal status or American citizens. And when my colleagues ask you about habeas corpus, and you say, literally, we can review the tape, that you believe it's a right the president has, you sat here in front of all of us and swore an oath to the Constitution, and that is not at all what habeas corpus is. It is a right that we all get, that American citizens get, that people who are in the United States legally have. So my concern is it's complete overreach. I don't think American citizens, even those who voted for Trump, believe that you should be able to just grab someone off the street, sloppy, who has the legal right to be here, and certainly an American citizen. And I just am concerned that while you say you're going after the most dangerous folks, what you're actually doing is going after folks for political reasons, right? A PhD student that's unarmed is not at the top of the list.
And we're not deporting U.S. citizens, and we're not deporting people who have legal status here.
10 American citizens
have been deported. If the children have gone with their parents, it's because their parents wanted them with them. So let me ask you another question about cybersecurity. You know, you've cut $500 million from the budget. What specific programs are you cutting? Because there are programs that really aid states and locals that we depend on for cybersecurity. And we know that right now, while we may have good security in the federal government, if you are a local state official, you're depending on the federal government. So have you cut
the ISAC program, the program to states and locals on cybersecurity.
The president's recommended budget has a reduction in $491 million.
Does it cut that program? I've heard the talking point.
And what it's doing is putting
cut the
CISA
program
back on mission.
You can't say that this is the most
cybersecurity is going to be strengthened.
You cannot say it's the most cyber secure administration if you're cutting the program to my state and to your state.
It will
and if you look on record, that's what you've cut. I yield back.
Time has expired. Senator Hawley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Noem, good to see you.
And this is the part of the conversation that I think people really need to sit with. Because what happened in that exchange isn't just about immigration enforcement in 2026 or about one cabinet secretary giving evasive answers under oath. It's about how easily language can be used to blur lines that are supposed to be bright red in a constitutional democracy. When Secretary Noem keeps repeating, "We're not deporting U.S. citizens," she's technically narrowing the definition just enough to avoid responsibility, while the outcome remains the same. American citizens, including children, end up outside the country. Families are separated, lives are upended, and the justification is always procedural, always bureaucratic, always someone else's choice. But that's exactly what Senator Slotkin is pushing back against. Because rights don't disappear just because paperwork is involved. Due process doesn't vanish because a decision passed through 3 agencies instead of 1. Habeas corpus doesn't stop applying because it's inconvenient to enforcement goals. These protections exist precisely for moments like this, when the government is convinced it's acting in the name of security. And that's the historical lesson here that can't be ignored. Every time governments overreach, it's almost always justified by urgency, by danger, by the idea that this moment is different, that this threat is exceptional, and that normal rules can be bent just a little. But once the rules bend, they rarely snap back into place on their own. Slotkin isn't saying border enforcement is wrong. She's saying enforcement without humility is dangerous. Enforcement without error correction becomes abuse. And enforcement that cannot admit mistakes will inevitably repeat them at a larger scale, with less oversight, and with more people harmed. What's striking is that she explicitly acknowledges the political reality. She says her state voted for Trump. She admits there is a mandate to do something about the border. That matters, because it undercuts the idea that this is partisan theater. This is someone saying, even if voters demand action, they did not vote to suspend constitutional rights. And that's the core disconnect. Most Americans, regardless of party, believe in borders and rights. They believe the government should remove people who are here illegally and respect lawful residents and citizens. They don't believe those two things are mutually exclusive. And when DHS behaves as if collateral damage is acceptable, it erodes trust not just in immigration policy, but in government itself. The chilling effect Slotkin talks about is real. When lawful immigrants start wondering whether their visa makes them a target. When students worry that a protest, a tweet, or a clerical error could put them on a plane. When citizens realize that their rights may depend on how aggressively an agency interprets its mandate. That's when fear replaces confidence. And fear is corrosive in a democracy. Then there's the cybersecurity piece, which might seem like a footnote, but it is. Cutting hundreds of millions from programs that protect states and local governments while offering only vague assurances about being back on mission follows the same pattern. Less transparency, less specificity, more trust demanded without evidence. That's not governance built on accountability. That's governance built on deference. What Slotkin is really asking for across immigration, constitutional rights, and cybersecurity is something profoundly unradical: clarity, boundaries, and acknowledgement that power needs limits, even when exercised by people who believe they're doing the right thing. Because once the government starts defining rights as obstacles rather than foundations, it doesn't matter who's in charge. That mindset outlives administrations. It hardens into policy. And eventually, it becomes precedent. And history shows us this over and over again. The people who are told, "Don't worry, this won't affect you," are usually the ones who end up most shocked when it does. So this exchange matters, not because of who scored points, but because it exposed how fragile rights can become when enforcement is treated as an end in itself rather than a responsibility constrained by law. That's the warning embedded in Slotkin's questions. Not hysteria, not resistance for resistance's sake, just a reminder that the Constitution doesn't enforce itself, people do. And when those people refuse to admit mistakes, the damage doesn't stay contained. It spreads,